This bleak and barren landscape might not look like a mountain pass, but that's exactly what it is. I find it really strange to think that this humble trackway has seen so much traffic. In many ways, this is one of the most important roads in American history.
Today I'll be looking at the role bushcraft played in its discovery.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Here in the United States, you can have just about anything you want. Even in a small town like this, every possible convenience is on offer. What's more, you can have nearly all of it without having to leave your car.
But even in this land of convenience, there are vast tracts of untouched wilderness, areas rich in the ways of bushcraft, and that's the reason why I'm here today.
I'm heading into an area where no motors are allowed. The only way you can get in there is on foot. Either your own, or even better still, those of a trusty companion.
The landscape here is almost the same today as it's been for hundreds of years. This is one of the most important areas in American history. This is the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem, the biggest wilderness area in the United States. Almost within living memory, it remained unexplored by white settlers. It's an area of amazing beauty. The only real way to explore it, though, is on horseback. I'm following in the footsteps of one of the heroes of bushcraft. His name was Jim Bridger, and he was instrumental in shaping America as it is today. To me, he's a kindred spirit. He was a superb woodsman, an expert trapper and guide, a true pioneer.
Only 170 years ago, these mountains were the stomping ground of a rare breed of pioneer. Men like Jim Bridger, entrepreneur and explorer, men we remember today as the mountain men.
Bridger and the mountain men came to this area in the 1800s, looking to make their fortunes. Their knowledge of bushcraft allowed them to live out here for months at a time, exploring uncharted territories and blazing the very horse trails that I'm using.
That skyline there, that's the Continental Divide. On this side, all the rivers run down into the Atlantic Ocean, and on the far side of that ridge, they all run towards the Pacific Ocean. Significant feature.
Many expeditions had tried to find an easy way for wagon trains to get across the divide, but to no avail. Extending 5,000 kilometers from New Mexico to Canada and 650 kilometers wide, the Rocky Mountains stood barring the way. The promise of riches that lay to the west fueled the pioneering spirit. The race was on to establish a wagon trail across the unforgiving terrain to open up the way to the Pacific. Very little has changed since the first time Jim Bridger rode through here. The only sounds echoing along the trail are those of wild animals. These would have been rich trapping grounds for the mountain men, prey animals are fairly easy to see, but predators are much more elusive. But with sharp eyes and keen senses, you can see their sign everywhere.
This is exactly the sort of thing I was talking about. You can see there where the tree has been barked by a grizzly bear. He's come along, stripped it off and eaten the cambium underneath. A classic sign that grizzlies are in this area. Come on in, walk on. This really is an amazing place. There's so much wildlife here. And travelling by horse, well, it's a fantastic way to see it. You can really feel what it would have been like for the mountain men. It's incredible to think that so recently this was the western frontier of the United States.
Without horses, most expeditions through this area would have been doomed. It's the only way to carry all your equipment across this rugged environment.
Whoa, well done, Slim. Travelling by horse is a fantastic way to get into the mountains. Not only haven't I had the weight of my gear on my back, but neither have I had my weight on my own feet. But of course, this is a partnership, and Slim here has done his part, so I've got to do mine. The horse always comes first at the end of the day. Well done.
These horses belong to Tory Taylor, a conservationist who spends much of his time in these mountains. Hobbles are designed to keep the horses close to camp. They restrict them, but still allow them enough movement to graze locally. With the horses sorted, it's time to get myself together.
The mountain men that came out here really were remarkable. Many of them ended up spending most of their lives living in these mountains. To do that, they had to have had a very high degree of bushcraft skill. But it would be wrong to think that they had that before they arrived. For many of these men had come from the cities. They had to be quick learners. In fact, most of them had to learn what they needed to know with the arrival of the first winter.
One of the great things about bushcraft is that you learn that even in the most spectacular landscapes, beauty is often found in the smallest details.
There's more sign of bear here, and I'll just show you this wonderful footprint. This is the track of a grizzly bear. You can see how big that is compared to my hand. The size alone kind of gives it away. And the things to look for are, we've got 5 toes, and this is a rear foot. You can tell that because these marks made by the claws are only a little way in front of the toe pad. The grizzly has longer front claws which he uses to break open rotten logs and to dig for food. He's looking for insects, things like this. There are also human footprints here which are quite fresh, but the bear is on top of the human footprints, so it's come along afterwards.
It's great to be out in such a pristine wilderness. In places like this, I like to camp out close to nature, just under a lightweight tarp. It protects me from the rain, and there's plenty of space to spread out underneath. If you're living outdoors like this, you have to take certain precautions to protect the wildlife that lives here.
Of course, a lot of people think that when you camp, bears are a problem. Actually, it's the other way around.